Let's go live now to Minneapolis and the BBC's Lebo Diseko. Lebo, of course, just watching it in Liam's report, it's a tough watch, but you and everyone in that court have seen the body camera footage and the security camera footage again and again today. A grueling day.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And the last hour or so, the prosecution pretty relentlessly showing body camera footage from all four officers that were here that day arresting Mr. Floyd, and really taking us through the interaction with him from right at the beginning. They began right round the corner there and bringing him in front of the Cup Foods store. Very distressing, but the prosecution will really want the jury to have gone home with those images in their mind over and over again, hearing Mr. Floyd begging for his life. Very distressing, but as I say, I think the impact was what the prosecution was hoping the jurors would go home in their minds with.
And it's very clear from the way some of the witnesses are dealing with giving their testimony, this is still a very open wound.
Absolutely. I mean, hearing a 19-year-old boy really talking about the fact that he still wishes he'd done things differently. I mean, he talked about the fact that he had considered actually paying for George Floyd's, I think it was cigarettes that he was buying himself. Basically, if somebody uses a counterfeit note, then it gets taken out of their wages. And Christopher Martin had thought, you know, should I just pay for his stuff anyway? He didn't seem like he meant any harm. And he stood on the witness stand saying, you know, I think about if I hadn't reported it, if I hadn't done what I'd done, would things have been different? Really quite difficult to see. And then obviously Charles McMillan as well, who broke down on the stand. He had tried to plead with Mr. Floyd, asking him to comply with officers, but also had really become quite angry and frustrated with the officers themselves, and really had taken Derek Chauvin to task. But we see him re-watching that video on the stand, and it was just too much for him.
And looking at the footage of George Floyd in the shop, of course, all this plays into the defence case that it wasn't Derek Chauvin who killed him, that he would have died anyway, seems to be their pitch, that he'd taken drugs beforehand. I think defence even alleges that he deliberately swallowed drugs to conceal them from the police, trying to paint a picture of someone who is in difficulty in any case from the drugs and from underlying health issues.
Well, this is the interesting thing, Mike. It was the prosecution that entered this video. This was the prosecution that brought up this video. And I think they did it because they wanted to show that, look, George Floyd may have had something in his system, but he wasn't a threat to anybody. You see him going into the store, you know, he's kind of maybe not entirely sober, perhaps, but he's not a threat, and he's fairly affable. He's, you know, moving from side to side, but nobody around him seems to change position or change what they're doing in any kind of way. So I think this is the prosecution laying out the fact that whatever you say about what he was taking or not taking, the force that was used by the officers was not reasonable.
Lebo, thank you very much indeed for that.